Gently pulls my hands behind my back and he ties me up, and then we start having sex.
A lawsuit that should have destroyed a rock legend vanished overnight. December 2024, the settlement documents were filed, and just like that, one of the most controversial cases in music history disappeared behind closed doors. No admission of guilt, no apology, no truth, just 2 signatures and it's over. But here's where it gets twisted. The woman who filed that lawsuit, Sheila Kennedy, had already told her story multiple times, in a book, in a documentary, on camera.
I kind of signed up for it. I was in that situation. I put myself in that situation.
And every single time she said the same thing. It was consensual. She was okay with it. Axl Rose didn't hurt her. Then suddenly, in 2023, everything she'd ever said got erased and replaced with a completely different nightmare. Violent attack. Decades of trauma, PTSD, a life destroyed. So what really happened in that Manhattan hotel room in 1989? And more importantly, why did the story change? Before we get to Axl Rose, you need to understand who Sheila Kennedy really was.
I did not consider it rape. It was consensual. That's why I never went to the police or reported it. I just dealt with it.
This wasn't some starry-eyed groupie. Kennedy was famous in her own right. And in 1983, she had a title that meant something. Penthouse Pet of the Year. 4 magazine covers. That's not luck, that's a record that still stands today. At 18 years old, she walked into Bob Guccione's penthouse mansion and didn't leave for 10 years. Think about that. A decade living in the epicenter of 1980s excess, watching celebrities, politicians, and rock stars rotate through like it was a hotel lobby. But Kennedy wanted more than just photos. She went after acting roles, landed parts in the first Turn On, Spring Break, even got the lead in Ellie with Shelley Winters. For a moment, Hollywood seemed possible. Then the phone stopped ringing. The industry has a way of using women from the adult world and then pretending they never existed. Kennedy disappeared from the spotlight, another casualty of an industry that chews people up. Fast forward to 2008. Big Brother 9 needed drama, and Kennedy delivered. She outlasted almost everyone, finished 3rd place, proved she could survive when people counted her out. Her own son told her she'd fail, called her difficult. She lasted 77 days. That same fight, that refusal to be dismissed, it shows up again in this story. But back in February 1989, Kennedy was 26, at the peak of her modeling career, walking into a Manhattan nightclub with absolutely no idea that one night would haunt her for the next 35 years. Or would it? Picture this. Guns N' Roses is the biggest band on the planet. Appetite for Destruction is destroying sales records. Axl Rose can have anything, anyone, whenever he wants. Kennedy isn't even a fan. She doesn't know who Guns N' Roses is. Her friend Susie drags her to this club because she heard Rose would be there. Ricky Rashman is launching his Cat House brand in New York, and Rose is helping his friend get famous. Kennedy sees Rose in the back room and walks over. His attention locks onto her immediately. He invites her to his hotel for an after party, but there's a catch. Kennedy's friend can't come. Why? Rose looks at her and delivers the line, "She's not hot enough." Think about the psychology of that moment. The casual cruelty, the power play, the way he's already establishing control. Kennedy apologizes to her friend and goes anyway. She admits it freely. She wanted to be there. The hotel suite is exactly what you'd expect. Cocaine everywhere. Champagne flowing. Scotch. Rose is flying high, and that's when Kennedy notices something strange. She goes to the bathroom and sees medications spread out on a towel. Lithium, Adderall. Heavy pharmaceuticals that don't mix well with alcohol and drugs. This is years before anyone knew about Rose's mental health issues. To the world, he's just a wild rock star. To Kennedy in that moment, he's something else. A time bomb. Rose is waiting when she comes out. He pushes her against the wall, kisses her. And here's the part Kennedy has never changed. She was into it. She found him attractive. She was open to whatever happened next. But then the night takes a turn. Rose starts having relations with another model, and it's aggressive, painful looking. He's encouraging group activity. Kennedy is not interested. She leaves with Rashman, heads to his room. That's when they hear it, crashing, glass shattering. Rose screaming at the other model. Rashman turns to Kennedy and says 5 words that stick with her. It's going to get bad. The door bursts open. Rose is standing there. And this is where the story splits into 2 completely different realities, depending on when you ask Kennedy what happened next. 27 years. That's how long Kennedy kept quiet publicly. But quiet doesn't mean secret. In the music industry, everybody knew about Axl Rose. His reputation wasn't a mystery, it was a warning. Stories followed him like a shadow. violence, rage, women who got close and paid for it. But here's the thing about the 1990s music industry. Bad behavior wasn't a bug, it was a feature. Rose's volatility sold albums. His chaos was marketing material. Kennedy watched other women step forward, and every single time, the same thing happened. Erin Everly, the daughter of Don Everly, the face in the Sweet Child O' Mine video, the woman who inspired one of the greatest love songs ever written. She filed a lawsuit in 1994 claiming years of terror. Friends testified they watched Rose drag her by her hair, kick her with cowboy boots, spit on her. One witness described waking up to Crystal flying across the room as Rose destroyed anything he could reach. Everly claimed he tied her up, gagged her, forced himself on her. The lawsuit detailed a pattern of abuse that should have ended his career. Instead, it ended with a settlement. Terms sealed. Story buried. Then Stephanie Seymour, the supermodel, the woman from the Don't Cry and November Rain videos. The couple the world thought was perfect. They got engaged in February 1993. 3 weeks later, it was over. Not just over, destroyed. Seymour filed a lawsuit claiming Rose beat her after a Christmas party, grabbed her by the throat, dragged her barefoot through broken glass while hitting her repeatedly. Rose fired back with his own lawsuit, claimed Seymour attacked him first, grabbed him by the genitals, and stole over $100,000 in jewelry, including a diamond engagement ring. Both cases settled. Both stories vanished. People magazine runs Battered Beauties, laying out the entire pattern. Multiple women, multiple allegations, multiple settlements, and nothing happens. Guns N' Roses keeps selling out stadiums. Rose's bad boy image just makes him more famous. The industry protects him because he's profitable. Kennedy sees all of this and makes a choice. Stay silent. But that silence is eating her alive. Or is it? Kennedy decides to tell her story. She publishes No One's Pet, her autobiography covering the penthouse years, the celebrities, the industry. And yes, she writes about Axl Rose. But here's what's about to make this whole case explode. What she writes doesn't match what's coming. Not even close. In her book, Kennedy describes what happened after Rose burst into Rachman's room. She goes back with him. Things happen. And she writes, "Weirdly enough, I was okay with this. I had wanted to be with him since the minute I'd first laid eyes on him." She describes Rose apologizing afterward, going from aggressive to childlike, saying he was sorry, it shouldn't have happened. Her account reads like a messy, drug-fueled hookup with a troubled rock star, not an attack, not assault, not trauma. The book barely makes a ripple. Kennedy's story is one of dozens in a memoir packed with celebrity encounters. If Rose even knew about it, he never responded. 5 years pass. 2021. The Look Away documentary drops and changes everything. This isn't just another music doc, this is a reckoning. Jackie Fuchs from The Runaways describes manager Kim Fowley violating her in a room full of people who did nothing. Julia Holcomb tells the world how Steven Tyler got custody of her at 16, got her pregnant, forced termination. These are devastating, career-ending revelations. This is the music industry's Me Too moment. Kennedy appears to discuss Rose. The cameras are rolling. This is her chance to reframe everything, to join the chorus of women demanding accountability. And she says, "It was consented. Rose was not trying to hurt me. He acted gently." The interviewer pushes. Kennedy doubles down. "It was okay. He was fine. I did not consider it violation. It was consensual." Those words are on film, permanent, undeniable. Kennedy has now told her story twice. In a book and on camera, and both times she calls it consensual. The documentary airs. People discuss it. Case closed, except it's not even close to closed. November 22nd, 2023. 11:59 p.m. is approaching. The clock is ticking on New York's Adult Survivors Act, a one-year window for victims to file lawsuits regardless of how old the case is. In the weeks leading up to the deadline, lawsuits are flying. Sean Diddy Combs, Cuba Gooding Jr., Jamie Foxx, high-profile names, wealthy defendants, cases that have been waiting decades for this moment. And then, with less than 24 hours before the window slams shut forever, Kennedy files. The lawsuit is 35 pages of allegations that contradict everything she's ever said publicly. Rose didn't just cross a line, according to this new version, he destroyed it. The suit claims he blocked the doorway when Kennedy tried to leave Rachman's room, dragged her back to his suite, threw her onto a bed, tied her hands with pantyhose, forced himself on her without consent, without protection, while she lay there believing that fighting back would get her killed. The lawsuit describes 30 years of PTSD symptoms, anxiety, depression, avoiding any place where guns end. Rose's music might play because hearing his voice triggers her trauma. It claims her entire career suffered because she couldn't function in entertainment spaces where Rose's name might come up. Kennedy is suing for assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and gender-motivated violence. The amount? Unspecified, but in cases like this, that usually means millions. The lawsuit brings up Rose's history, Everly, Seymour, even an alleged 1985 incident with a 15-year-old when he was 23. It paints a picture of a serial predator who used fame to prey on women for decades. The media explodes. How is this possible? How does someone go from writing "I was okay with this" in a book to filing a lawsuit claiming violent attack? How do you call something consensual on camera in 2021 and then claim PTSD from assault in 2023? The timing alone raises questions. Filing on the last possible day, right before the window closes, after years of telling a completely different story. Rose's supporters scream money grab. Kennedy's supporters scream trauma response. And both sides have evidence that makes their case. Rose's attorney doesn't waste time. The statement is brutal. Simply put, this incident never happened. The lawyer notes that these fictional claims were filed the day before the New York State filing deadline expires. Translation: Kennedy waited until the last second because she knew this was garbage. The statement continues. Rose has no recollection of ever meeting or speaking to Kennedy. He's confident the case will be resolved in his favor. It's not a defense, it's a dismissal. Rose isn't just denying the assault, he's denying Kennedy exists. March 2024. Rose's legal team files a motion to dismiss, and this is where it gets absolutely savage. They don't need to prove Rose is innocent. They just need to use Kennedy's own words as a weapon. The motion quotes directly from her 2016 book. "I was okay with this. I had wanted to be with him since the minute I'd first laid eyes on him." Then they pull out the documentary. Kennedy on camera saying, "It was consented. Rose was not trying to hurt me. He acted gently. It was okay. I did not consider it violation. It was consensual." The legal argument is devastatingly simple. Kennedy made clear and definitive statements, both before and after the Me Too movement, that this encounter was consensual. Now suddenly, her position has shifted. Why? The motion suggests Kennedy saw the Adult Survivors Act as an opportunity, a last chance to extract money from a wealthy rock star by reframing consensual activity as assault 35 years later. The lawyers don't just want the case dismissed. They want Kennedy and her attorney sanctioned for filing a frivolous lawsuit based on materially false statements designed to harass and injure Rose. How do you defend against your own recorded statements? Kennedy's team argues that trauma victims minimize their experiences as a coping mechanism, that it takes years, sometimes decades, to process what really happened, that her earlier statements were her brain protecting itself from a truth too painful to face. It's a compelling argument backed by psychological research. Trauma does work that way, but there's a problem. Kennedy didn't just fail to call it assault initially. She actively, repeatedly, explicitly called it consensual. In writing, on camera, multiple times. That's not minimizing. That's defining. And now she's redefining. The question is why? But here's what nobody can explain away. Axl Rose has a documented pattern. This isn't speculation. It's court records, witness testimony, settled lawsuits. Aaron Everly had people testify under oath about what they saw. Slash's girlfriend, Megan Hodges Knight, gave a deposition describing waking up in Rose and Everly's home, hearing Aaron begging, "Please stop, don't hurt me," while Rose screamed at her. She testified about Rose destroying Everly's antiques. Crystal flying through the air, violence so casual it happened while guests were sleeping in the next room. Hodges Knight described Rose kicking Everly with cowboy boots, dragging her by her hair while she wore almost nothing, throwing a television at her that missed, spitting on her. That pig, Hodges Knight said in her deposition. He spit on her. Everly's friend Heidi Richman, a TV producer, witnessed Rose beating Everly at a barbecue in the Hollywood Hills. He was pulling her hair. He was like a rabid dog. Multiple friends called police during violent incidents. Everly told officers it was fine, false alarm, because she was terrified of what Rose would do if she pressed charges. The psychology of abuse is on full display. Rose weaponized his own trauma, told Everly about being kidnapped and violated by his biological father, about his oppressive stepfather, made her feel sorry for him even while he hurt her. The relationship finally ended after a whirlwind Vegas wedding, a pregnancy, a miscarriage, and a final violent incident. Everly sued years later. The case settled with confidentiality clauses. The pattern continued. Stephanie Seymour told reporters, "Getting involved with Axl Rose. Clearly a mistake. He was a violent person. I realized I never wanted to be around that again. I saw the worst of that world." Her lawsuit described Rose shattering bottles during an argument, grabbing her throat, dragging her through broken glass. Rose's version was that Seymour grabbed his genitals first. Both sued. Both settled. Neither filed criminal charges because that's how the system works with wealthy defendants. Civil suits offer settlement and closure. Criminal cases offer years of brutal litigation with no guarantee of justice. There's also the 1985 allegation. A 15-year-old, when Rose was 23, he was reportedly arrested. Charges dropped. Kennedy's lawsuit cited this as evidence of a decades-long pattern. People magazine laid it all out in 1994, and it didn't matter. Rose's bad boy image was profitable. The industry protected him because he was worth protecting. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's documented fact. So what's the truth? Kennedy says one thing for 27 years, then suddenly says the opposite. Rose has multiple accusers with similar stories, but also maintains total innocence. Both things can't be true, or can they? Trauma experts will tell you that victims rewrite their narratives as a survival tool. It's psychologically easier to convince yourself you consented than to accept you were violated by someone famous. The Me Too era gave women permission to re-examine experiences they'd normalized. Maybe Kennedy spent years lying to herself, and 2023 was when she finally faced reality. That explanation makes sense. It's backed by science, it's compassionate. But Rose's lawyers have a different explanation. Kennedy saw the Adult Survivors Act window closing and realized this was her last shot at a payday. She knew her earlier statements would complicate things, but she also knew Rose would likely settle to avoid a public trial. The fact that she waited until the literal last day, that she filed alongside dozens of other high-profile cases against wealthy men, it creates optics that are hard to ignore. Maybe the changing narrative isn't healing, maybe it's strategy. Both explanations fit the facts. Both make logical sense. That's the problem. There's no smoking gun, just two people with competing versions of a night that happened when George H.W. Bush was president. 35 years of drugs, alcohol, fame, trauma, therapy, lawsuits, and public statements have blurred everything. Nobody knows what really happened anymore. Maybe not even Kennedy and Rose. December 2024, the settlement papers are filed. The case is dismissed with prejudice, meaning it can never be refiled. The terms are confidential. Rose issues a statement. As I have from the beginning, I deny the allegations. There was no assault. Kennedy says nothing publicly. Both sides pay their own legal costs. After a year of legal warfare, headlines, speculation, and debate, it ends with paperwork in a courthouse. No trial, no testimony, no truth. Rose's lawyer says her client suffered greatly from this lawsuit and is pleased he can move on with his life. That phrasing is deliberate. Suffered greatly, as if Rose is the victim. Kennedy's team releases no statement, no victory lap, no vindication, just silence. The settlement doesn't tell us Rose was innocent. It doesn't tell us Kennedy was lying. It tells us that when enough money is involved, truth becomes negotiable. The legal system resolved a dispute, but it didn't uncover anything. Rose never had to answer questions about his pattern of alleged abuse under oath. Kennedy never had to explain why her story changed so dramatically. Both got what they wanted: escape. Here's what we know for certain. The music industry protected Rose for decades. Multiple women accused him of violence. Every case settled confidentially. His bad boy reputation sold millions of albums, while women who claimed he hurt them were dismissed or forgotten. Kennedy's story changed in ways that either represent trauma processing or narrative reconstruction, depending on your perspective. The settlement means nobody gets answers, just the end of a fight. Can you still blast "Welcome to the Jungle" knowing what you know now? Can you separate art from artist when the artist might be a monster? These questions don't have clean answers. Rose's case shows how impossible it is to find truth when everyone involved has reasons to lie, misremember, or rewrite history. Kennedy forced Rose into a settlement. Rose maintained his denial and walked away. Both will carry whatever really happened that night for the rest of their lives. The fans, the public, everyone watching this unfold, we're left with questions that will never be answered. Maybe that's appropriate. Maybe the truth is that after 35 years of fame and trauma and substances and lawsuits, nobody really knows what happened anymore. Not Kennedy, not Rose, not anyone. What remains is a story about power, about an industry that protected its profitable stars while women's voices were silenced, dismissed, or complicated into irrelevance. Whether Kennedy told the truth in 2016 or 2023, whether Rose is a serial abuser or a falsely accused rock star, the system failed both of them. It provided legal documents and confidentiality clauses, not justice. The case is closed. The questions remain, and the truth, whatever it actually is, died in a conference room somewhere in New York when two lawyers shook hands and made it all go away.